So it's been a few days now since we had official confirmation that Arne Slot will be the next Liverpool manager, and I'm sure in the days since then you've been reading everything you can get your hands on about Slot and what he's going to bring to Liverpool, and watched every deep dive you can, including the one on this channel. Hopefully, I'd urge you guys to go and have a look at that and see if you can find out more about Liverpool's next head coach. But one thing we don't know an awful lot about at the moment, and we haven't had any official confirmation of, is what Arne Slot's backroom staff is going to look like. Who is he going to bring to Anfield with him, and what can they bring to the table as they usher in this new era? So I thought it was worth taking a kind of a little dive into what we do already know, what has been established at this point, who will be coming to Anfield with him, and what we know about those people, and also looking at what we don't quite know yet, and also who could fill those vacancies, because there are an awful lot of vacancies there. Jurgen Klopp not the only one who's been leaving this summer. It's also several backroom staff, as we saw at his Anfield farewell, are also departing. So a lot of jobs and a lot of vacancies to fill there for Liverpool before pre-season gets underway. So I'll start with what we do know, and some of the key figures that we know are definitely going to come to the club, and I'll start with the man who is going to be Liverpool's number 2, Sipke Hulshoff. Previously the assistant coach at Feyenoord. Now, the fact that we know he's definitely coming to Anfield is because there's been confirmation from the Dutch national team. He was the assistant there to Ronald Koeman, but he's not going to take part in the Euros this summer because he's got to focus on this new job that he's got at Liverpool. So we definitely know Sipke Hulshoff is coming, although there has not been any official confirmation from Liverpool of that fact yet. But we do definitely know he's coming, and the role he's going to take on, we expect, is similar to what he had at Feyenoord under Slot, which is to be his number 2. Now, these two have got a little bit of history together. He's been a long-standing number 2 for him, but they've coached together for quite a long time, actually. And they first met at Cambuur years ago, which was Slot's first real role in management. He went there as a coach to learn under Henk de Jong, but eventually was moved up to be the head coach himself. And it was actually, they were joint head coaches, him and Sipke Hulshoff, when that first began. So they were working as the two head coaches rather than a head coach and an assistant, which was a bit of an interesting dynamic. And they had a fairly decent amount of success there. Again, I went into this on my deep dive into Slot, that they did have some initial early success, and that, again, credited to that team with Hulshoff that he formed. Now, that didn't last too long. They weren't together at Cambuur too long. Obviously, they took over in October 2016, and by the summer of 2017, Slot had stepped back from being a head coach, wanted to go and be an assistant at RZ, where he could learn a little bit more. So that saw that partnership broken up, and while Slot went off to RZ, where he eventually would be made head coach and do a great job there, obviously that really launched his coaching career. Hulshoff went to Volendam and learned a little bit more, and again, went down his own path. He was an assistant again there, so really priming himself to be more of an assistant than a head coach. And he was eventually, they were reunited when Slot finally made that move to Feyenoord, where he's enjoyed all that great success. He immediately brought Hulshoff in as an under-21 coach, but he actually didn't last that long in that role. Pretty soon after that, he was promoted to be the assistant to Slot at Feyenoord, and they've worked in that sort of pairing ever since. Obviously, alongside that, they've had great success at Feyenoord, winning a title, winning a Dutch Cup, getting to the final of the Europa Conference League as well. So Sipke Hulshoff has been there for all of that, big part in that success. And the fact that he's a good assistant coach and is known for his work, I think says a lot. That he was made the Dutch national team coach. Obviously, that was nothing to do with Slot. He's not in that role. Ronald Koeman had seen what Sipke Hulshoff had done, the way he prepares training sessions, and felt that he was someone who could really add to his staff. Now, obviously, a bit of a blow to lose him before the Euros, but for Hulshoff, I suppose it's a step to Anfield, where he's got to do everything he can to be successful and put the work in there and ensure he's ready. So didn't feel like he could split his time between going to a major tournament and then coming to Anfield after that. So I think that's interesting. But I think it says a lot that Koeman was moved to bring him in to be part of his team. And I think that shows that he's got real pedigree as an assistant coach beyond just what he did at Feyenoord under Slot. And it's interesting, I spoke to someone who worked with both Slot and Hulshoff, and he said about Slot that he had this natural, he was special quite naturally. He had a special quality to his coaching that he had quite naturally, and he felt that Hulshoff had to work at that a little bit more, but that he felt that Hulshoff had made himself special in the end through the work he put into becoming a better coach. And I think that's interesting. The slightly different characters, clearly, and slightly different talents in the start of the career, but both described by someone I've spoken to who's close to both of them as really special coaches, and both really highly thought of. So I think, you know, that's exciting around Hulshoff, that he's going to bring that to Anfield, and obviously we know he's got a great relationship with Slot, so interesting to know what that dynamic's like and how it works at Anfield. But he's brought someone along who he really, really trusts, and that's one of the best steps you can take as a coach, isn't it, in terms of surrounding yourself with people who know the type of football you want to implement and can help you do that really quickly. So that is important starting this new era at Anfield. Now, the only other member of Slot's coaching staff at the moment that we have officially confirmed is coming, again, not through the club, they haven't mentioned anything about this, it's from other sources, but that is Ruben Peters, who will be the first team lead physical performance coach, which is a little bit of a mouthful, isn't it? But that is definitely the role he'll be coming into. The reason we know this is that his agency have confirmed that he will be taking that role at Liverpool. They also mentioned that Sipka Hulshoff will be going as well, so we've had confirmation of that from another source. But Ruben Peters' agency have confirmed that that is a done deal, and he will take on that role at Liverpool. Now, obviously, as I say, that role is a little bit of a mouthful, the job title there, but I think what it essentially says is that he's taken on a role quite similar to what Andreas Kornmeier had. Now, his title was Head of Fitness and Conditioning. I think Ruben Peters will look after a lot of that, making sure that the squad is physically ready to try and play that high-intensity football that Slot wants. And obviously, again, they've known each other from Feyenoord, so really he knows that he can implement that. He can get the players physically fit enough. And again, you know, there will be elements of Kornmeier's role, as I say, Head of Fitness and Condition. I think it'd be similar to that, but I wonder if there's also elements of what Andreas Schlumberger was doing. He was the Head of Recovery and Performance, and again, there seems like there's some slight overlap between those two roles, so interesting to see how that sort of plays out. But again, he's another really highly rated member of this coaching staff. You know, read some of the background on him and some of the things he was really focused on to try and give Feyenoord an edge, and it was focusing on how the players sleep ahead of games, the amount of sleep, you know, when they sleep around games, to see if that could give them any edge. Microbial manipulation, which apparently is, again, I'm no scientific expert, but apparently is you know, looking after gut health and the impacts that can have on elite level performance, and something else called epigenetics, which again I won't try and pretend that I know anything about, but it sounds extremely detailed, and I think it does give you an idea, even if you don't understand it, much like me. I'm definitely no scientist, just a football journalist, but I think it gives you an idea that the attention to detail that Ruben Peters has paid. And I think it says a lot about Feyenoord, by the way, who are known as a really innovative club. Again, a club who's looked to try and find every edge they can, and has really succeeded. And that, again, you know, it's no coincidence that they've appointed people like this who are so highly thought of elsewhere, and they've you know, overachieved relative to their wage budget in that league, in European competition as well. So I think it says a lot, and these are really highly rated people who are coming into the club. But as I say, we've only got confirmation of those two coming at the moment, and there's quite a few other vacancies you'd imagine that Slot will want to fill. I mean, one of the person I want to talk about who've been linked with coming alongside him is Etienne Rijken, which is he's an analyst, and again another highly rated coach who's worked alongside him at Feyenoord. He's a bit of an interesting background actually, in terms of you know, he's worked in sort of very different elements. So he was, you know, viewed as an analyst and a coach at Feyenoord, but he previously worked as a youth coach at PEC Zwolle, combined that with being a scout alongside it, then worked as a technical director at Cambuur, which again I think is really interesting, that he's worked in so many various elements of football and got, you know, the bird's eye view in being a technical director, but also been really close to it and being a youth coach. So done all those types of things, and as I said, combined the two again with being an analyst and an assistant at Feyenoord. And so again, and there was a quote I read in a great piece in the Dutch press, which someone described him as a born trainer with natural dominance. So again, really highly rated by anyone he's worked with, and highly regarded. But the one thing I will say about Etienne Rijken is that the reports around him potentially being part of the group that comes from Feyenoord have kind of gone slightly quiet at the moment, so we're not entirely sure whether that will happen. Remains to be seen. I think there's clearly a vacancy on the coaching staff there. I think, you know, if you consider that Sipka Hulshoff is maybe the Pep Lijnders replacement. There's still room, isn't there, for a Peter Kravitz type. He again, I think under Klopp worked very much in that combined kind of analyst and coach role. So I think there is definitely a vacancy there, but it's gone kind of quiet on that. So again, interesting to see if it is him who comes in and takes up that role, or whether Liverpool have to go down a different route. But that's one to really keep an eye on, because there's definitely a space there in the coaching staff, and we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. And again, another vacancy I want to talk about is a goalkeeper coach. Now, you remember, you may have seen me, I've written a couple of weeks ago that Claudio Taffarel is expected to stay at Liverpool, so there is going to be one goalkeeping coach still left from the previous era, which of course we know that John Axberg and Jack Robinson have both left now, so Taffarel is going to still stick around, so he's still going to be there, but there is an expectancy in people I've spoken to as well that telling me that they still want another goalkeeping coach in there. You know, Taffarel is known to work very closely with Alisson, but Liverpool have got so many goalkeepers, haven't they, at the club? Not just the guys of the youth who will sometimes step up to first team training, but you know, you had Quaveen Kelleher at the moment. Whoever steps up to maybe be number 2 if Kelleher goes. They had number 3 in Adji, and again he may be going. But they've got a huge collection of goalkeepers, maybe 4 at a time in training. It's a big job, so it takes multiple goalkeeper coaches. So the expectation is that Liverpool will look to get another goalkeeper coach in. Now again, will that be a case of them poaching someone from Feyenoord? We'll have to see, because their goalkeeper coach at the moment is a guy called Jiri Nieminen, a Finnish goalkeeper coach, and again very, very highly rated. Quite young really, but he's a very well known in European football for the work he's done so far. He actually, prior to joining Feyenoord and implementing what is a really aggressive style of goalkeeping that again, you know, would very much suit the type of football Liverpool are playing down to the ground. But prior to that, he worked at New York Red Bulls, which again I think gives you an idea. If you're part of that Red Bull group at the moment, you play a Liverpool type of football, and I think for a goalkeeper coach, again, that means aggressive positioning, the way that they push out to make saves, you know, dominating your area, being good with the ball at your feet. All of those are elements of it. So again, Jiri Nieminen would tick an awful lot of boxes in that. Again, it's kind of quiet around that, whether that might happen. I think what's interesting is when I'm asking sources and talking to them about it, no one's kind of ruling it out yet. So I think if it wasn't, you know, if Nieminen wasn't in the running, I think people would be absolutely ruling that out, and I'm not quite getting that at the moment, which suggests there may be something in it, and maybe there's a possibility that he will move to Liverpool. But again, similar to Etienne Rydon, no sort of confirmation around that, and we're yet to hear who will come in alongside Slot as a goalkeeping coach. So again, you know, really interesting to see how that kind of pans out, because there's a clear vacancy there, and we'll have to see who will join. And there are other vacancies as well in the sort of sporting staff around the club because of some of the departures in physiotherapy, some strength and conditioning coaches as well. So there are plenty of vacancies for Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards to fill before pre-season gets underway in Liverpool. They've got a lot to think about at the moment, haven't they? They've got transfers, they've got the coaches they've got to appoint, they've got various vacancies across the sporting staff, and of course then transfers they've got to think about. So it's going to be an incredibly busy summer for them, and hopefully some clarity to come soon, because obviously Arne Slot will officially start his work on June the 1st, then the first week of pre-season is expected to start in the first week of July, so not an awful lot of time to get these vacancies filled. And as I said, there's a lot to go on there, a lot to sort out, and a lot of clarity to be sought around who's going to join in. But of course, the best way to keep track of what happens next and who is going to be part of that coaching staff is to subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed this video, and if you can always drop a like, that's always massively helpful as well. Plenty more to come. There's so much more transfer updates to come as well, and it's such a busy time at the moment, so I'll see you guys very soon.